Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace. Welcome back. Now to the very first story. Government says measures being implemented to check the rising public debt would soon yield the expected results. The response follows warnings by ratings agency Fitch that Ghana's rising public debt remains the biggest threat to stabilizing the economy. The agency had also indicated if this development is not checked, it could impact negatively on the country's credit ratings, which is currently at B with stable outlook. But Deputy Minister of Finance Kweku Kwarteng tells Joy Business government is committed to controlling its rising debt stock because of its impact on the economy.
Yes, we are naturally concerned about the increasing debts, but we should remember that as a percentage of GDP, the debt situation is not deteriorating. Now, we encountered liabilities. We even encountered people who had bought government bonds, or in simple language, who had given government money with the understanding that after 3 months, 6 months, they will be giving back the money with interest, the short-term bonds. And there have been people whose bonds have matured, and they say, we want our money. Of course, we inherited it from the previous administration, but continuity of government, and so we have been under responsibility to pay, which is why we have had to borrow in order to deal with the immediate issues. But you would also note that we are borrowing in the longer term. The 5-year bonds, the 7-year, the 10-year, and the 15-year bonds are designed to free up some fiscal space, to reduce our own edge, to go on the domestic capital market and to borrow so that you crowd the private sector out of the domestic money market. That has been our strategy. Plus, of course, as a result partly of our own commitments, but also liabilities we inherited, there has been a gap between our expenditures and the resources we were able to mobilize. So in the 2017 budget, we did put in a deficit. Now, that required that we borrowed money to finance that gap. All that is contributing to the slow rate at which we are addressing our debt situation. But I am confident in my mind that if you look at our strategies on reining in expenditure, the capping policy, and the other things we're doing to reduce government expenditure, plus the debt reprofiling, I'm confident that the rate at which these debts are accumulating will reduce, and that going forward, we will bring back our debt to GDP to sustainable levels.
Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry is doing away with a practice where businesses that are entitled to tax exemptions have to make an upfront payment before getting a refund. This could bring some relief to a lot of businesses, as the development could help reduce the cost of their operations and possibly lead to a reduction in the cost of some goods and services. Moving on, members of the Senior Staff Association of the Volta River Authority, VRA, are kicking against government's decision to sell the company's thermal and non-power generating assets. The workers say the sale of the assets will result in astronomical electricity bills, power disconnection of key state institutions, and some layoffs. Members of the association are demanding government ensures the VRA's thermal and non-power generating plants are not sold out, while demanding a governing board immediately inaugurated.
The government, through some of its functionaries, particularly Honorable Kweku Kwarteng, has so far advanced various reasons for the planned sale of the thermal assets. These include VRA is good at operating only hydro plants, and that is attested by the name Volta River Authority. And as such, the authority should focus on generating power by means of the river. VRA's mandate is to generate power from water resources, but was allowed to stray into thermal power generation. Government new policy is to separate thermal from hydropower generation. Government intends to solve the power sector challenges by allowing private sector take charge of the thermal generation subsector in the country. VRA is not efficient in managing thermal business. VRA is indebted and depends on government support. Ladies and gentlemen, we've examined the above reasons and wish to respond as follows. Number one, VRA is good at running and managing hydro plant. The Volta River Authority has successfully run, maintained, and managed the country's hydro power generation plant at Akosombo and Pong for over 50 years, as well as other forms of power generation without any major problem. There is therefore no doubt about VRA's ability to continue to run, maintain, manage both the hydro and thermal assets under its operation. We state unequivocally that VRA is efficient. It has a mandate to diversify its power generation portfolio and must be allowed to operate in line with the VRA Act. We, the staff groups of VRA, are therefore opposed to the government position as advertised on 23rd August 2017 edition of the Daily Graphic. VRA's thermal and non-power generation assets are not for sale.
Away from that, Deputy Trade Minister Carlos Ahenkra said infrastructure in several locations across the country to serve as model markets. This, he says, will also enhance the level of trade in made in Ghana goods and promotes the development of local industries. He was speaking ahead of the Joy Prime Made in Ghana Fair, which comes off on the 24th of September. The fair seeks to showcase the handiwork and artisanship of many Ghanaians.
It is interesting to note that the inter-trade relationship between Ghanaians, or buying and selling within Ghana, does not take the normal format that most developed countries would practice and ensure that monies actually do exchange hands more regularly than you'd have expected. Why do I say this? In Ghana, people trade only for convenience. We don't trade for business. And it is the opinion of this ministry to ensure that people trade amongst themselves much more than they do from now on. Because of this, the first thing that we intend doing is improving the retail infrastructure of this country by putting together nice edifices where people would sell their wares from. For example, we did not know that people would enjoy the sight of malls and so on and so forth. Today, if you see the way people patronize malls, for example, it's quite interesting. People go there and take pictures. People will go there and for sightseeing and so on and so forth. At least they get there, even if they don't buy anything at all, they will buy an ice cream or they will buy something and exchange money there and then. If you go to the Tema station, as I speak to you right now, you will see a pair of shoes on the floor which is being sold for 25 Ghana cedis. Maybe you and I might not buy that shoe because of where they are selling the shoe. But the same or similar shoe will be sold in an air-conditioned shop at Accra Mall for 250 Ghana cedis, and we would buy that shoe. Why is it like this? It is like this because people think that the infrastructure within which the goods are being sold spells out who buys it and who doesn't. So therefore, if that were the case, then it is important for us to improve this manner of doing business for Ghanaians to have value for money. So the ministry is going to ensure that we have model markets from villages, from towns, from municipalities, regions, and as I said, even regional capitals. For the regional capitals, we are going to try to put up a mall each in each of these regional capitals, of course, which is also private sector led. As you can see, Kumasi is up, Accra has been up already, Takrady has started, and we're moving on. Even if we are not able to get everything before the end of our 4 years, I can assure you that at least quite a number of them will be achieved before the time. That notwithstanding, we also have a feel that many are those chain of shops that have identified Ghana as a safe haven for trade and all moving in to sell. I'm talking about the games of today, the Mr. Prices. I'm talking about the ShopRites, the Malcolms, and so on. Now, we're going to ensure that to trade more within ourselves in Ghana, at least a couple of shelves will be left to stock up made in Ghana goods.
All right, so you remember the Joy Prime Made in Ghana Fair comes off at the Junction Mall at Nongwa in Accra on the 24th of September. Now, moving on, some oil marketing companies have started adjusting their prices upward to reflect current developments in the second pricing window. The Institute of Energy Security, IES, had earlier predicted prices will go up by at least 7% for the second pricing window. We are now joined by the Principal Research Officer of the IES, Richmond Roxon, to tell us more about what is going on and some other related issues. Richmond, you're welcome. Thanks for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Now, so what has your monitoring come up with for the second pricing window?
As we projected earlier, we're expecting prices to rise by about 7%, between 7 to 10%. This is because the CD continuously is depreciating. This is something we've spoken about for 10 consecutive windows. That will be 5 months. But nothing absolutely has been done because the trend continues to go down. As we speak, it's 4 cedis, 48 pesos to $1 from a previous average of 4 cedis, $44 cedis per dollar. When you check the Platts benchmark of finished products as well, we know that gasoline went up by 14%. Gas oil also went up by 8%.
Okay.
You look at crude oil prices on the international market. Crude oil prices currently are trading around $55 per barrel from a previous average of about $52 per barrel. This is what we've put together, and we've projected that prices are supposed to go up by 7%.
Now, you've been monitoring some of the oil marketing companies. Which ones exactly have you seen, and what are the prices they are posting on?
So far, Vivo Energy, that's Shell Ghana, and Total Petroleum, they've increased their prices to reflect exactly what we put out. Both companies have increased the price by 7.99%. That's almost 8%.
For petrol?
Yes, for petrol. And for diesel, they've done about 5%. Previously, we were selling both products at 4 cedis, 13 pesos. As we speak, petrol or gasoline is 4 cedis, 46 pesos.
Per liter?
Per liter, yes.
Okay.
And diesel is 4 cedis, 33 pesos per liter.
So
what it means is that
okay,
per gallon, we are looking at over 20 cedis per
20
gallon.
cedis
Yes,
per gallon.
over 20 cedis per gallon.
Now, you have also been advocating the removal of some taxes,
Yes,
which also contribute to this price build-up.
Yes.
Which ones exactly should be removed, and
Because
are you still keen on that?
Yes, when you look at the build-up, the formula for pricing, you realize that almost 41% is made up of taxes and levies. We don't think that it's fair to the consumer. Over the years, what happens is that government always uses the petroleum sector to raise revenue because it's a commodity that everybody purchases, and we've been kicking against it because one of the critical taxes that we've been talking about is the special petroleum tax. It was 17.5%, which has been reviewed to 15%. We don't think it's fair because it's a tax on another tax. What it is that after the formula is being put together, government taxes the petroleum fuel per liter by 15% again. We don't think that it's fair. You can't put a tax on another tax. So we think that government, as a matter of urgency, must scrap that. When you look at some of the components to price stabilization and recovery levy, we think that it should be off. We also think that the road fund is 40 pesos. It should come down. Some of the taxes can be reviewed up downwards instead of the current rates that they have.
All right, so given the fact that if, for instance, this particular window that we're witnessing, the price adjustments that we are witnessing for now, if these taxes are removed, within which range would you think we should be?
If these taxes are removed, I'm sure that we can even reduce it by a cedi. If we look at it, we can reduce it by a cedi because as I mentioned earlier, cumulatively, you're looking about 41% on taxes. What it means is that if you are purchasing fuel at 4 cedis per liter today, about 1 cedi 80 pesos is just taxes. We don't think that you can take all of them out. I mean, some of them are important that you keep there, but when you do the reviews and you take these levies out, we think that you can take about 1 cedi out. Let me be quick to add that the current Deputy Minister of Energy, Dr. Amin Anta, when he was at ASEP, all of us advocated that this must be off. He's now the deputy minister in charge of petroleum. We are hoping that he's going to push for this to be done because, as a matter of principle, that is what you stand for, and we hope that you pursue that.
But now, this current development is also precipitated by the fact that the hurricanes in the US are really persisting. Now, to what extent is it affecting the current prices?
It has affected, when you look at the US as we speak, you look at the Texas area, that's where we have most of the refineries. Most of these refineries have shut down. Most of them haven't been working for a while. Others are now picking up to start working. And because they are not refining, what it means is that the demand for crude is low. They're not refining, so what it means is that the supply also for finished product is also low. But some of them are picking up, and we expect that in the next pricing window, they would have started trading, even though we don't expect that they will go back to what they were doing in July or August.
Are we only bound to buy from the US? Aren't there any other markets that we could?
No. Normally we buy from Europe. That's how come we use Brent instead of WTI. But whatever happens in the United States affects prices of fuel across the market. What it is that we know that OPEC over the period have been holding on to production cuts in order to stimulate prices upwards. It is the US shale that has been able to balance it. Otherwise, prices would have gone up. But once the supply is coming from United States, we know that it's able to come to make up for the deficits that we would have had if OPEC was still holding on.
Now, this current development, do we expect it to, go into the first pricing window of October?
Yes, we expect that in the first pricing window, some of them would have resumed, but not all of them would have resumed. It will take some time for them to resume and even start using their refineries back. So in the first pricing window, it's likely that some changes might happen, even though it will be marginal. Yeah.
Okay. Now, away from this fuel price increases, the fact that the IES had also criticized the sale or the proposed sale of VRA's thermal power plants and other properties of the VRA. What do you hope to say about this?
This afternoon, I've been monitoring the media airspace, and I know the Senior Staff Association of the Volta Reservoir Authority have had a presser indicating to government that their assets is not for sale. We agree with them. Initially, we put this out on 30th of August because we think that it is government's own actions and inactions that has brought VRA where it is today. So you can't turn around, just like Mr. Kwekukwatin said, that they've been inefficient, and over the years, they've allowed them to stray into areas where they're not supposed to be. When you look at the VRA Act, it's clear that apart from the hydro resources, any other resource that they think they can use to be able to generate. So it's a matter of they straying away from it. In any case, when you do a critical analysis, you realize that the problems are not from VRA. The problems are because over the period, successive governments have micromanaged VRA, and that has been the problem. You go and sign an expensive deal like Ameri. You sign the deal, you impose it on VRA. At the end of the day, they're supposed to provide fuel for VRA. Last time when we checked, from January to July, they had supplied over $150 million worth of natural gas to Ameri. And this sits on the books of VRA. So if you are making these decisions, how do you come back to blame them? What KPIs have you given them to be able to measure them to say, okay, this is what we expect you to do, but you haven't done that?
No, but Richmond, VRA was set up an act of parliament or by government.
Yeah.
So if government decides to actually rescind its decision because of strategic reasons, would it not be allowed?
We don't think that taking VRA in the hands of government, the state-owned enterprise into the private sector is the best, especially knowing the critical role that VRA plays. VRA is the power generator for the country, and every country or every state develops on energy. We all know what happened between 2012 and 2015 when we had the power challenges. If you take it in the hands of the private sector, what guarantees you have that at the end of the day, they're not going to hold you to ransom? Especially when all the power agreements that we've signed with the private sector, they are more expensive than what VRA does. When you are looking at composite pricing for VRA, you are looking at standard pricing for the private sector. VRA is doing 21 pesos, and the private sector is doing 41 pesos. Some of them are even doing as high as 76 pesos. What is the guarantee that when you hand it over to them, they're not going to hold you ransom? What we think is the government should hold on to what we have. We should hold on to the hydro, we should hold on to the thermal. If there are challenges, we should deal with it. Government says it's going to deal with the debt in the energy sector. Once we clear the debt, let's give them KPIs that this is what we expect from you. If you fail to deliver, we'll dismiss you.
All right, last thing before we go, the Gazprom deal, you have also commented on it. Yeah. What's your beef?
Our issue is that we know very well that LNG is very important to this country moving forward. We anticipated that by 2020, our domestic consumption will be around 300 million. And we are happy that government is trying to bring in the LNG. But over the period when this thing started in 2015, there were 3 companies that were involved. We're looking at Quantum Petroleum, we're looking at West Africa Gas Limited, and we're also looking at the Cahill Group. Eventually, we know that BEM came in, that's the Blystad Energy Management Group, they also came in. But all of a sudden, this company has come in, and we cannot tell the details. What is happening is that government is rather micromanaging the information that comes out, and that they haven't released the details of the deal. We are asking that government release it because the devil is in the details. IES and its international partners are working on it, and in a matter of days, we are going to come out with a fresh release.
Thank you very much, Richmond Roxon. It's been interesting having you on board.
Thank you very much.
And we hope you do come again another time.
It's always
Richmond Roxon is the Principal Research Officer of the Institute of Energy and Security. We've been talking about the current developments on the downstream pricing sector, and also the developments with the VRA and the Gazprom deal. Moving on, some farmers in the northern region are upbeat there would be a bumper harvest with the introduction of government's Planting for Food and Jobs program. The program started this planting season with a supply of quality seeds and fertilizers to farmers at a highly subsidized price across the country. Speaking during a tour of some farms at Sang, Director of Agriculture in the Meon district of the northern region, Abednego Abosori, said about 800 farmers are being enrolled and were benefiting from the flagship Agric project. He said many others are now trooping into the district Agric office daily to be a part of it because of the success story so far.
The first phase of the Planting for Food agriculture policy of government focuses on supporting farmers with subsidies to acquire fertilizers and seeds to grow maize, soya beans, rice, sorghum, as well as vegetables such as onions, pepper and tomatoes. The program, which started this planting season, has seen government supply quality seeds and fertilizers to farmers at subsidized prices across the country. The Director of Agriculture in the Meon district, Abednego Abosori, who led a tour of some of the farms of Sang, said about 800 farmers have been enrolled and were benefiting from the Planting for Food and Jobs project.
Look at this, and I would say that the patronage for this particular program is high. Because if I want to look at the records, especially with maize, we have so many farmers into maize and that kind of thing, because of the sensitization that we've gone out there. So what I want to feel, or my opinion, is just that there are farmers who are benefited from the package. Whatever you are paid, the rest that are left, try and make it up so that the program can continue. As I said, this is one of the most flexible programs. And it is evident that because we have witnessed significant increase in the acreages of maize, followed by rice and then the others. And so I think that those who think that the package is not helpful, maybe that is their own opinion.
Some of the farmers were of the view that government's Agric initiative had raised the expectation of farmers for a bumper harvest and called for the same support to be extended to livestock farming.
They brought some chemicals and they came and even spray the place. The first one, then the second one, they said we should do it. So after the worms, it destroyed. We those who were able to buy to get the chemical, but those who couldn't get, it destroyed the farms. So there's one house by my house. That man, he couldn't get there. So in fact, it destroyed. When you go to his farm, you shed tears.
So Planting for Food and Jobs has really helped us a lot. The price is moderate. Everything is cool.
The visits to the Meon district and other parts of the region was meant to ascertain the initial impacts of the Agric policy on farmers in the area.
And finally, before we go, Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta has hinted of government's plans to implement a new ownership structure for the all-state enterprises. He said this had become critical due to the role such state enterprises are playing in the socio-economic development of the country. The Finance Minister made the disclosure in a remark to open the 2017 SOEs Policy and Governance Forum underway in Accra.
In doing so, SOEs will be positioning themselves to competitively attract financial resources to expand and improve their operations and profitability. Government is committed to exercising its ownership rights diligently and responsibly in order to enhance the governance and performance of SOEs. Government in 2018 will codify the strategic direction and the underlying principles for how it intends to manage its ownership rights in the SOE sector through the development and implementation of an ownership policy manual. This ownership policy will streamline the governance of the sector and serve as the bedrock of government's corporate governance reforms in SOEs. The ownership policy for SOEs will detail the objectives of state ownership, the roles and responsibilities of the shareholder, board, and management, and how government will exercise its role as a shareholder. It will also provide...
And that's all in the marketplace for today. Many thanks for your company, and do join me again same time tomorrow afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Apua. Have a good day.